Okay, so how is this program going to work? It's just going to be like any other class. You start by registering. Registering means you're making a commitment. Yeah, people hate that word these days, but it requires you to say, okay, I'm going to see this through, and it also requires you to say, you're going to work with us, because we don't want to just train a bunch of people and have them all run off and go, with some company that's simply going to take advantage of the hard upfront work we're putting in here. So that means the Solar Gardens Institute is going to want to keep people in the fold a little bit, and that's what we're doing. All right. Attendance. So we need people to show up to class. Since these are going to be taught electronically, we have a distributed system. We're doing distributed energy. We have people distributed all over the map. So you're going to come to the webinars. You got to participate. It means you're going to either go to the webinars when they're happening, or you're going to go to a recording and make them up. But we're going to have to make sure that you have all that information. And so how do we know that you have that information? We test. That's part of certifying. You have to make sure that you know what we're teaching you, because we need to make sure that we have certified solar gardeners out there that all know a certain minimum of stuff. Okay. Yeah.
As far as attendance, are we going to give people the option so that we have a live recording session or webcast, they can actually come and be part of the audience and ask questions live?
That would be really great, and I think we can have live classes happening in multiple locations at the same time, as long as we can get this AnyMeeting thing working. I think that's a terrific thing. So you've got to attend, and you've got to take the test. The other thing we have is homework. And this falls in the category of learn by doing. In other words, you're not going to be going and writing a paper about it or saying how this would work if you were really doing it. You're going to be out there really doing it and making a start. Right? You're going to be starting this program, and as you go out there and as you go to a unit about talking to your utility, what do you do for your homework? You actually go talk to the utility. If the homework is to start gathering subscribers, you actually go out there and start gathering up subscribers. That's how that part works. Okay. And the grades. Now we're adults. We live in the real world. You're graded in these terms. This is called the Solar Gardener Grant. Your grade is your grant. It's pass-fail. What we need for you to do to get your grant is we need the site control. That means a lease or purchase of the rooftop or land that the solar garden is going to go on. In other words, we need to know where it's going, and we need to make sure that the parties involved are in agreement. And the other thing we're going to need is 10 subscribers. that is sufficient for us to know that, okay, this is a serious project, and that you can then you can start to get a grant. Typically, we'll be working with a local nonprofit in a given area. For instance, in Saguache, we've got Saguache Alliance for Green Energy, which works with Saguache County Sustainable Environment and Economic Development, called Succeed. In Ontonito, we've got Conejos County Clean Water. Different groups that can then, in Leadville, they've got High Country Conservation Center. So the grants will typically go to these local nonprofits that can then actually pay organizers to do all of these things. To get past this, then you're going to be looking at the interconnect and the program approval, I guess. Right, which means you're actually taking this and making sure that you get an allocation under Excel's program in the case of Excel, or that it fits into whatever the Rural Electric is doing or the Muni is doing, and the remaining subscribers. And then you get to something called graduation. Congratulations, you're now a solar master gardener, and you can go out and train more solar gardeners so that this can become an exponentially growing thing and form that runaway solar gardening effect, which will, in my calculations, beat the runaway greenhouse effect by getting us to 100% solar power by the year 2030. Remember, they were saying we were only going to get to 15% by 2035? I forget who it was who said this, but one of the great failings of the human mind is its inability to understand exponential growth. Course syllabus. What kind of classes are they going to be teaching you? Okay, so we have basically for our we have a high degree of difference in technical knowledge between people, so there's sort of Solar 101. What's a kilowatt? What's a kilowatt hour? What do we mean by all of these things? Interconnection and PPAs and FITs and PUCs and blah, blah, blah. In other words, solar boot camp. Next is Intro to Solar Gardens, which I will be teaching as the intro, as the second introductory class. The next one here is Solar Gardens Policy. So how to get a law in your state, and maybe that's where people have to be for a while. Even so, we want them to start organizing projects and putting together subscriber groups, just because that makes it more real for everybody. So we got a class in Solar Gardens Policy pretty early on in the program. Then financial models. Will be taught by Professor Florak. We're calling everybody here professors. just because we want this to be like the Hogwarts of community solar. We want to have a Professor Dumbledore, a Professor McGonagall, or a Professor Hughes, and Stanley Florek, who probably knows as much as anybody else in the world about these financial models.
That's the dark arts, right?
It's defense against the dark arts. It never was clear whether defense against the dark arts was really about defense against them or just so you could get a little bit in there. I don't know. Anakin was seduced by saying he could use all of the Force, and look what happened to him. Anyway, so planning and permitting. That's Chuck Tidd down in the San Luis Valley is going to be teaching that one since he sits on our planning commission and he knows a lot about this kind of stuff. Let's see, we have environment. What sorts of environmental questions do we have? And those are really two things. One is what happens if you're building on a brown field, and then what about the environmental impacts of what we're doing, because you simply can't be free of any kind of impact. And so I'm going to try to recruit Becky here to teach that part of the course. Let's see. We have talking with utilities. How many of you have read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People? Hands up. Okay, that's going to be some required reading there. Basically, the basic premise of that book is how do you persuade somebody of something? Well, you don't beat them on the head and say, I'm right and you're wrong. What you say is, you can benefit if you come to an agreement with me. So we look at the motivations of the utilities, what they're really trying to accomplish. Utilities are really motivated by the concept of fairness between different groups. They don't want to subsidize one group with another group. And that's why they've had a lot of trouble with net metering, because net metering tends to subsidize wealthier people at the expense of poorer people. So solar gardens can help rectify that and make things more equitable. So I believe Gary Neistat will teach that one. Grid watching. You want to be able to go out and look at your grid and see, okay, what are these little mini distribution lines that run out to people's houses, usually too small to connect a solar garden to. And then these other big towers and things, and some of the look like regular power lines are actually transmission lines, and they're too big to connect these things to. Where's your substation? What does that look like? The sweet spot is what we call the three-phase. Perfect level of distribution system. The feeder lines is what these are known as. That's where we interconnect our solar gardens. That's going to be Jerry Marizza from United Power. Community-supported arrays. These are